Hello everyone. Good evening to all of you. I am Mahadevan. I head the school education segment at TCS ION and I'll be your host for this evening. Welcome you all to yet another thought-provoking session from TCS ION Direct. As a responsible teacher or educator in today's world, you're probably wondering how to make your children or the students successful in their career. Everything is about success and future. Given the VUCA world, what everyone has been talking about, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And remember, this term was actually created in 1987. Full 35 years have gone by. And still the talk is about future readiness to a world which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So what is this future readiness all about? I found one clean definition. We call future readiness the state in which we turn volatility and uncertainty to advantage. It is about shaping what lies within our potential of influence. It involves acquiring new skills and insights that strengthen our capacity to anticipate, innovate, and respond. So that's the theme for the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, how do we make children future ready? Is it possible at all? For example, when we started looking at this planning for this session, we were debating what is future all about. For example, future in the 1970s were all about how the 80s and 90s would become. In the 90s was all about the millennium. And once the millennium has come, and today it's all about what the next 30, 40 years. So when we looked at who can be the right expert, who can join us to share his or her views, we looked at someone who has taught, who has managed, who has guided, and who has seen his students grow into leaders, impacting the world in the careers in their chosen domain. And today we see, and he told us about a very large number of those, and we see that he's seen his students with a lot of pride. So I'm very happy to introduce you all to our guest today, Mr. Shomie Ranjan Das. Shomie Ranjan Das is an Indian educationist, an alumnus of the Doon School. He served as a headmaster of the three most top schools in India: the Doon School, the Mayo College, and the Lawrence School, Sanagar. He had earlier taught at the Gordonstoun School in Scotland. He established the Oakridge International in Hyderabad, Vizag, Mohali, and Bengaluru. In fact, to just give you a quick background in chronology, immediately after leaving the Doon School, he graduated from the St. Xavier's College of the University of Calcutta and then the University of Cambridge. After working at the Gordonstoun School, where he taught none other than Prince Charles, he was the principal of Mayo College from 1969 to 74. In fact, he is revered as one of the greatest principals, next only to Padma Shri J.T.M. Gibson, who had received the Order of the British Empire. Mr. Shomie went on to become headmaster of Lawrence Schools, Sannavar, in 74, where he continued till 88. Then he moved to his alma mater, the Doon School, and he completed the course of leading schools in an operational capacity in 1996. He was the headmaster of the Doon School from 88 to 1996. Subsequently, he took on the role of an education consultant, setting his vision to create more such leaders, more such educators. And today, he is the chairman of the Oakridge International School. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Let me now open the session. First, sir, I want you to just give your introductory remarks on what everyone is talking about becoming future ready or preparing children for the future. So over to you, sir. Your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Maha, for the introduction and for inviting me to this talk. Nothing gives me more pleasure than to talk to teachers, because they've been my colleagues all my life, and my journey has only been with teachers as my close friends and colleagues. So it gives me great pleasure to be here. Now, let me just put things into a little bit of context by telling you a little bit about my journey. So I started learning at the age of 5 and didn't go to school till the age of 11 because my mother taught me. And she taught me 3 things very well. One was read and write in Bengali, one was read and write in English, and one was arithmetic. And I'm forever grateful to the grounding that she gave, very often using some violent methods which are no longer allowed. But the things I learned, many of those things are now obsolete. For instance, I was taught tables right up to 16. And to tell you why 16, because there were 16 annas to a rupee before we changed to the decimal system. And therefore, we needed to know that if we gave 5 rupees change and 5 rupees as a capital, and we spent 2 rupees, 4 annas out of it, what change would we get back? And for that reason, we had to know 16 times table. Now, today, not only is the system changed, but don't even need to know tables, because everything is given to us in machines. And that's the thing, that the changes have come more and more rapidly. Since 1940, when I first started learning, till now, it was a slow pace. We did the same thing for years. And then suddenly something's changed, and then a few more things. And then suddenly a huge amount of change came when in the millennium beginning, the smartphone was introduced. And today, when you think about it, we've been through a huge pandemic. And in the last pandemic, I was reading, there was disruption of a major kind because the tools were not there. And today that you have all these various methods by which we taught our children even during pandemic because of the availability of new technologies. Now, no one could have predicted that. And no one would have been able to see how to cope with the pandemic at that time when I was around. So technology has really taken hold of us, and we need to know a lot about it. And there's resistance to change, which stops people from embracing new things, and that is a very big issue. However, just imagine we have to cope with this because today a child joining school today will be at the turn of this century when she is my age. I'm now 86. So 86 years on, she would have gone past the century, almost. What will the world be like then? Can anyone predict? In fact, what will the world be like 50 years from now? We can't predict. In fact, we can't predict what the world will be like 5 years from now. And so, getting students future ready is probably the most important skill that a teacher must have. All teachers can impart knowledge. They've been taught how to do that, and they're trained, and they have passed degrees and everything else. But to make children future ready, you have to be slightly different to just being a teacher. So let me tell you a little briefly, very briefly, the 10 things that I would like teachers to have in them as quality. Not that they have to, there's no syllabus for this. So the 10 things that the teachers must have, which they then impart to their children, are the following. And they all begin with C's, so you can remember them easily. First thing is curiosity. A teacher naturally must be curious. We are curious. We are curious in such a way that it has helped us to come to this point of our civilization just because we are curious. So, curiosity is something we are born with, and something which in our system we tend to dumb down. We tend not to encourage. We tend to encourage books which are giving you the knowledge rather than questions which will seek more knowledge. So curiosity is something that a teacher himself or herself must have. The second is creativity. To be creative, to make something out of something else, to make something more, push the envelope. And all the time, you must be challenging children to be creative, think beyond. You can do this in every subject, including ethics. I'll give you some examples, another stage. But how in mathematics you can be creative? How a good teacher will make children creative in mathematics. The third C that I have is critical thinking. Critical thinking is a very, very important property of a human being. But if you don't have critical thinking, you will be swept away with all sorts of knowledge which might lead you in the wrong direction, may not be what you want to do, and so on. C that I have is communication. We have to teach children to communicate clearly, succinctly, and put their thoughts together and be able to expand on whatever is being talked about. This is a very important problem that children face, to communicate what they're thinking. And teachers face this as well, because their job is communicate. They do not communicate fairly. The fourth and fifth C is how to make a choice. The world has changed so much. We are constantly having to face situations where we have to make a choice. I mean, a simple thing like 1,000 careers you can choose from, and there are 100,000 sub-careers. How do children choose? I have one of the important issues that children have no problem. No teacher has a problem with that, because they're constantly having to help children make choices. Now, these 5, I think, are very important skills that kids have to learn and teachers have to impart. But I have 5 more, which are not skills, but values. And these also need to be given to children. And you know, if you're courteous, if you smile instead of being grim-faced, it makes a big difference in your interaction with people. Think about all the time is being candid. Children should be taught to speak their mind, to be truthful, to say what they feel, so others know clearly where you stand. Being candid is one of the values that I insist on in my interactions with kids. And with candidness, you know, you have to have courage. If you're not courageous, you'll never be candid. So the next C was candid and being courageous. One following that is a very important issue today, especially today, and that is to be collaborative. Learn to collaborate. Very often, we find that working with others is difficult. To be taught how to work with others. Equally, we have to be taught how to be competitive. So you collaborate and you compete. Now, these are two almost contrary things. But children have to be taught how to do both fairly, properly, ethically. The next C that I have, which is the 9th one, I think, is to be a good citizen. Be a good citizen is to carry out your responsibilities in a community, whatever they may be. And in other words, don't divorce yourself from the community and live your own life. Associate with the community, get involved in it. Compassion, in my view, means to love with a passion. Love what? Love the air you breathe. Love the trees that you see. Love the birds that sing on them. Love the blue sky. Above all, love those who are less fortunate than you. So this is the last value and one of the important ones that you need. Now, if you look at these 10 C's that I've given, you will find that none of them have a syllabus. You will find that you cannot say, now today I'm going to teach compassion. You cannot one day go into your class and say, I'll teach them how to be creative. Some things you can teach, but others are really a way of life. In other words, you've got to devise things in the classroom, in your day-to-day current interaction with kids, that will constantly give them these values and these skills. Let me give you an example. So when I appointed prefects in a school are the top body of students who then help you look after the school. When I appointed prefects, they were appointed because they were recommended by teachers and others. And of course, they were recommended because they were good at games, they were a bit of a dada, all that sort of thing. So people said, he'll manage in this. But to really find out who was worth it, I used to take 21 students who were with me as prefects up a mountain. And in that trek, there were slightly risky things, like crossing a snow slope with a steep fall. And you had to bring out your courage. You had to be a team person. You had to be a leader. You had to have courage. All these things came out when you were on that expedition. Now, it was a 5-day expedition. I did it. And all my teachers in school did it. So that was one way in which you tested children. What I'm trying to say is that there are methods that we can use for all these values and skills that I have talked about.
See, it was interesting to see choice in the first 5 items which you talked about in terms of the skills, right? Let me start with that. Because I wanted to actually start with what are those skill sets. I think you have already explained all of those well. So let me start with choice. Now there are these two ends of the spectrum, right? On one side, people say that we are giving children whatever they want, whatever they are choosing, we are agreeing to it, right? But it's more to do with, let us say, what they want to eat, what they want to buy, and the kinds of pampering which parents do, or these days parents do. So that is one end of the spectrum. The other end is where there is a lot of complaint that we don't allow the children to be what they want to be, right? When it comes to picking up, let us say, the streams or the careers and etc., there's always a parent, a very significant, I would say, at least as part of our societal construct yet even now, that the parents have a very large influence in the choice of the career. Now, where on one side we say that we should make children give them the ability and ask them to choose, but on one side we have this. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, first of all, I don't think that if you think that choice means that you can do anything, I don't think that's correct, because there's a set of rules under which we live. There are a set of, every parent lays down rules for their children's environment. The choice has to be within that. Choice has to be ethical. It can't be unethical choices or immoral choices. Choice comes bound by these ethical and other constraints.
Right. But one another question, in fact, because you talked very specifically when you started itself, you talked about talking to teachers because you have been their colleagues and they have been your colleagues. So in some way, the school system, the instructional system today, right, given the focus on rote, given the focus on, competitiveness, preparing them for very specifically maybe some 2 or 3 of the very large options available. How can the instructional or education system, what needs change there? Because on one side, when we say all of this, how easy or difficult it is for a teacher, for example, to give the time a child wants to be curious, right? So how is that possible, or what should they really do? Because there is a paucity of time. It is all today. Teachers are very worried about completing the syllabus, right? They don't have the time for the curious.
This is the real problem in our education system, and I refer to this as the tyranny of the board of examination. They put every teacher into a straitjacket. This is what you will teach. This is what you must not teach. This is the time you must take to teach this. And this is nothing but tyranny. It's a autocratic dictator who does this. As a result, it certainly binds teachers into a very narrow trajectory. But I think it is possible for good teachers to get out of it. Because if you don't, you won't enjoy your teaching. If you're a really interested teacher, you want to be out of it. And you must use as many systems as you can. For instance, I told you I would ask, and this is part of the syllabus, how many stars do you see at night? Now a child will go out that night, look up, and will start counting. So what I'm saying is that you don't have to stick to the syllabus. You have to be, the syllabus can be connected to many things if you do it properly. You see, in my system of learning, I never used textbooks. I was always of the view that learning must be inquiry-based, and that children must construct their own knowledge. Now, problem is that it takes time to do it this way, and there is no time except up to class 8. It's beyond that teachers come under heavy pressure. Before that, they have the ability to be more flexible. And I think that's when they should be more flexible. And indeed, I've seen some very good teaching practices in the younger classes. So that is the one hope that we have, to make our children properly educated for the future, is this thing for up to class 8. They don't have the same pressure of the board of education.
On the same lines, there's one more thing which you talked about, being candid, right, as one of the values. Being candid in terms of speaking their mind out and asking the questions. That is again another challenge, right? It is not about just the system or the time, but it is more about the attitude and the behavior of everyone, including, I would say, adults, right? We don't allow children to ask the questions, right? But children learn by asking questions. But at some point of time, when they grow up, maybe between, say, grades 6, 7, 8, 9, I think we slowly start putting don't ask too many questions, right? So how do we really balance this? Because this is very critical for their growth.
It's very difficult to do that always well. That's true. But to be candid doesn't mean you tell someone, I don't like your face. They must learn what they should talk about, be candid about, and what they shouldn't be candid about. So, but candid does mean that you share your views on life that we are discussing even now truthfully, and being courageous enough to say what you want if you think that what the teacher or everyone is saying is wrong. I remember a question that a boy asked me in class, and he said, "Sir, does the eye see frequency or wavelength?" Now that's a question that a boy could ask in physics. And quite frankly, I didn't know the answer. And I said something, and the boy was quite thinking. He said, "I don't think that is correct, sir." And indeed, he was right. I was trying to fob him off by saying, "This is no." That's what I really mean. That you argue with your peers if you have to, if you think that it is not right.
And One of the other challenges I think many teachers would be on the for the session now will have experiences is they see certain set of aptitude skills in children, in their students, and they know that if the child or that student spends more time, he or she will master it, but neither does the system give the time. How does she or he or she really have the, what do we say, construct to continue improving that particular skill set or mastery for the child? What should a teacher do? Because it is not always the teachers continue, they see the student for a year or on a subject and etc. So how will the system, how should it work?
Well, the first important thing for a teacher is to know who the child is, where he comes from. In other words, if a teacher, and I'm now talking about say 30 children in a class, not 60, 70, she must get to know the parents. She must be in touch with her parents and understand the parent first. Because if you do that and you make a certain amount of friendship with your parents, you begin to find that you understand the child well. And you begin to understand the child why he or she is behaving in a particular way. But some things that you must never do with children. One is you must never humiliate them. You must never say, oh, of course, I know your parents are so rich. It's not the child's fault that the parents are rich, but it is the child.
So how do you build confidence in children? Shruti Dogra Bharadwaj is asking. So
yes, that's a very good question. Now, confidence comes by putting children into situations where they have to take decision, be a leader, and work with others. And when they succeed, they find that they have developed a certain aura about themselves.
Set of 5 skills followed by the 5 values. How do we stop parents from comparing one child with the other? Because this is a big challenge and every child is unique. Everyone has certain skill sets. This is a question from Yogita Deshmukh. This is the last question.
Well, I mean, parents compare their own children. And they say, oh, you're not doing, look how well she is doing. Look what you're doing, wasting time. You know, this is a perennial problem of human beings. I don't think you can stop children being compared. In your heart of hearts, when you are looking at children, if one of your child is not doing as well as the other, you're going to compare. That's a natural sort of thing. The important thing is not to use it as a tool of making the other child do better. That's not the way to do it. That's a negative approach. So if parents were able to understand that, and if the teacher could say that, look, don't compare them. You know what their strengths are. They're not all both the same. You encourage the strengths of each child. Whatever their strengths are, you encourage. Now, it's easy to say this. Teachers have a lot of problems on this. I mean, in a class of 30, very, very difficult to give individual attention to one child and another, and to not have the child is looking out of the window. So you form an opinion about that child. But you don't ask the question, why is the child looking out of the window when she should be looking at me? And the answer is obvious. She's not interested. So you've got to develop interest of the child. But parents will go on comparing. They compare their own children. They'll compare with other children, and sometimes it becomes quite nasty. But I don't think this is a human trait.
Thank you, sir. I think your initial set of 5 skills followed by the 5 values set a good framework in terms of preparing anyone for the future. Right? It's not an easy answer. How do we prepare? It's complex, as in the VUCA world. Right? It's also volatile because we are dealing with a generation which is very different from the generation in the last everyone has seen, given their access to technology, given the speed at which they learn. It's very different, and I think in the end it's also a collaborative role which the teacher educators, educator leaders and parents have to put together to really make everyone ready. But in the end, we are still trying to believe that we are making people ready for a future which we believe it is, which itself is a question. Right? With that, I thank you for being part of this interesting talk, sir. Thank you again, and thank you participants for being patient. Thank you, sir, and wishing you all a very good evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mal. Thank you for having me. Bye.